So the Bundesliga title race is still on. Bayern Munich with 7 points over Borussia Dortmund as it stands. Yes, it's 7 points, but it is still there for the taking if things are to go wrong for the German Giants in the games that follow. Shaka Hislop joining me now to look back on Dortmund's 1-0 win over Hertha. And what a lovely goal that was, Shaka, with the three players combining, Jadon Sancho, Julian Brandt, and of course, Emre Can, the finisher.
Yeah, it was a good goal and much needed for Borussia Dortmund. But Key, I got to correct you. The title race is not still on. It's long over. Even Dortmund players feel that way. And you can tell just by the way they approach this game from the get-go. I don't feel that this Dortmund performance today looked like anything I've seen from them in quite some time. To me, it seems, like I say, the title race is over. And with the win, I don't think there's any question anymore that they're going to finish in the top four and there'll be Champions League football for them next season. They're ready to book their holidays, and I can sympathize.
Shaka, it ain't over until the larger lady's singing, and I can't hear her singing yet.
Yeah, okay. All of Dortmund have already had their holiday haircuts. They're ready to go. It's over. The fat lady has sung, she has packed up her mic, and she is headed home.
Okay, so I'm going to pick you up on those haircuts before we get into a bit more on this game, because I heard you saying that Jadon Sancho is getting too big for his britches as you were talking about some of those Borussia Dortmund players getting those haircuts. But what was interesting to me, Shaka, and what I saw you saying, was that you feel this player will benefit from more responsibility and a bigger stage when it comes to his career if he really is to knuckle down.
Yeah, I think so. And just... I'm going on what I've seen of Jadon Sancho since play has resumed or since the lockdown. And at times I wanted to sympathize, well, I do sympathize with him not being in the starting lineup because of that injury. I thought it was an injustice every time he came off the bench, as I mentioned. I felt he looked good and he made Dortmund better, yet wasn't included from the start against their make or break game of the season. And then for me, especially over all the discussion that we've had about players, not necessarily in Germany, certainly not with Dortmund, but across Europe, getting haircuts during the quarantine, and how selfish it is, and how well Germany had done as a country and as a league to get football going again. All right, this weird new version of football with no fans and no celebration, but at least football is going again well ahead of everybody else. To then go out and have a haircut, it's more than just kind of arrogance around your own image. I think it's selfish. It is desperately selfish, and selfishness does not go in a team sport. I don't care how talented you are, and to display that kind of selfishness to me shows that there's a bigger issue at play here, and maybe he needs that bigger stage. He needs that bigger responsibility to shed some of that selfishness that I'm talking about. And as much as it may make sense for him to stick around for another year or two or whatever however we want to spin this and up his value, it may serve him best just to leave now.
Well, his 16 assists this season, selfish.
He's a talented boy. Listen, there's no question about that. And you see that every time he steps on the field. And again, you show it today. That I don't question. But if you are to deliver on your highest promise, you can't have yourself middle of every discussion, of everything you do. And again, getting haircuts as he did, for me, is just an act of selfishness. And I know he wasn't alone on it. He's not the only one to blame here, but he's the one we're talking about. So he's going to have to take the majority of the flack.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Emre Can, because he showed his versatility. Coming in at centre-back, Mats Hummels obviously not there today, but just showing that it's not just the defensive work he does. He can nick you a goal as well. Not wanted by Sarri at Juve, but this has definitely been Dortmund's game.
Yeah, without question. And you're right to point out Can's versatility and how much is needed. We've also spoken about Dortmund's own youth. And as good as they are, as fast as it makes them, they still need that kind of grounding personality. Somebody who can come in and play midfield or play centre-back, if that's what's needed. And Chan continues to be outstanding in that regard. You can't have teams with that kind of youth be as good and as successful as we've seen from Dortmund without those more mature heads kind of splattered around. And that's what Chan is, wherever he's been asked to play, he's done so and done so well. I think his value to that team is a lot more than just his versatility, wherever that may be on the park.
Just taking a look over the match day, I'm going to tell you a weird stat that's happened since the lockdown was lifted. So we've seen Bayern Munich with a 4-2 win over Leverkusen. Eintracht Frankfurt were beaten at home by Mainz. Dusseldorf held by Hoffenheim. That game finished 2-2. Leipzig held late on by Paderborn. They conceded that late goal, did Leipzig. That was their 5th draw in the last 7. And then Borussia Dortmund with a 1-0 win over Hertha. If you go to Friday's game, you had a home win there with Freiburg against Gladbach. Just 10 home wins since the lockdown was lifted. What does this tell us, Shaka? Does it tell us how important the fans are? Or is it just because there's been this breaking play that it's always going to be a bit skewed?
I think it's a bit of both. We never knew what we'd get from any team, any individual coming out of the break, because it's just so unnatural. And you didn't know what to expect. But at the same time, there is real value to having your fans there with you. And that's what you're seeing, both in good times and in bad. Players respond to pressure. And having fans there, that extra layer of pressure brings out the best in the good players. And I think that's what you're seeing. You lose a little bit of an edge. And results stand up to that.
Looking at the table then, Bayern on top, 7 points clear. Dortmund behind them in second.
It's over.
Leipzig in third.
It's over, okay.
Gladbach and Leverkusen following in 4th and 5th. But Shaka Hislop is not having it, despite the fact there are games left to play. He says Bayern Munich have already sealed it.
I'm up for a haircut now.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.